and welcome to the podcast. Today we have a chat with Keegan Hirst.
Ian Roberts came out in the 90s. He played in Australia. He was down at Manly, I think it was Manly. So he came out in the 90s, and that kind of went by the by, really. Obviously, Gareth Thomas came out before I did, Rugby Union. But I think the thing that I was most proud of, even though it took me a long, I say it took me a long time to come out at 27. I came out in the middle of my playing career, like probably, getting into my best years. And I think, now when I look at my stats, like half of those I've played as an out game man, and that's something that I'm actually really proud of.
If you don't know Keegan, he's a rugby league player, and we talk about the Rugby League World Cup, we talk about the upcoming season, and of course we dip into some LGBTQ content towards the end. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a chat with Keegan Hirst. We first met at Edinburgh Fringe, where you came to one of my, what I can only describe as ill-populated shows.
was that one of the lower ones?
Oh mate, it was. I saw you come in and I was like, I know who that is. And immediately I looked at my crowd and thought, oh, why is he coming on Monday? The crowd, yeah, it was an early. I feel like it was an early week one, yeah, and I was struggling for audience at that time.
Yeah, I think we went up like Tuesday to Thursday. That was my first Edinburgh Fringe, so congratulations, you were part of my first Edinburgh Fringe.
It's a huge honour.
It was. I didn't know what I was walking into, to be honest, especially post COVID. And my boyfriend Joe was like, "Oh, it's amazing. He'd been before." And when we first got there, and I was just seeing loads of street performers, I thought, "This looks absolute dross." And then we got into it, and I absolutely loved it. And the reason that I actually found your show was I just put a thing out on, because I'm lazy. I put a thing out on Instagram and I said, at the Edinburgh Fringe, is there any shows that anybody would recommend? And you were in esteemed company. You were in with Jinx Monsoon, Simon Brodkin, there's some good names in there. And so I was like, when I looked at, so then I went in and looked at the shows, and I was like, LGBT sports comedian. I was like, yeah, I'm down for that. Come on, Joel. And Joel hates sport, and he came and he was like, I enjoyed that. I was like, well, there you go. So there you go, mate. That's the stars aligned.
Just that's the best pitch I could have for my special coming out in a couple of weeks. It wasn't shit, and it wasn't what I can only describe as street performance. But yeah, it's quite a baffling sort of environment to wander into, the Edinburgh Fringe, because there's a lot of unstable comedians and unstable street performers. It's just like you've just walked into like a city of instability.
Yeah, there's the tattoo going on up the road as well, so it's like. You spill out of a pub, out of a comedian's show, and then there's a load of men in kilts smashing a bagpipe, and I think there was some Mexicans coming down as well. So it was very eclectic. That's the word. It was eclectic.
Eclectic. I think that's a very nice way of describing Edinburgh Fringe. But thank you so much for coming to my show. I really appreciate that. And then obviously we sort of got chatting afterwards, and I had to bring you on to the Big Sport Pod. Welcome. So I mean, you're back in the world of rugby league. Yeah. Okay, you're back in. Because from a bit of research, you'll be impressed by this. You sort of first joined Batley Bulldogs in 2012, right? So you're back again. I think you returned in 2014. You've got a sort of back and forth with them. So are you excited?
Yeah, so Batley is my hometown. There are three things that have come out of Batley: Fox's Biscuits, Rob Palmer. And I'm at the bottom of that list of the three things that have come out there.
I'd hate to say that Foxes are more important than you.
Yeah, so is Rob Palmer, and he's dead. So, for anyone who doesn't know, he sang the song "Addicted."
So he loses. It's just you and the Foxes battling to the death
now. But he's immortalised, so maybe he wins. So yeah, Batley's. It was always nice because I actually lived in Batley at the time when I first signed, so it was just up the road for training. It was dead easy, and I ended up becoming captain there. And then I think we got to a grand final. I went to a supposedly better team, hated it, went back,
So was that when you went to Wakefield Trinity, or
No,
was that no?
Featherstone before that.
Okay.
And then Wakefield, went and played in Super League with Wakefield, which I absolutely loved Wakefield. And
You were quite highly capped in the Super League as well. I've done my research.
yeah,
Keegan.
played quite a few games for Wakefield over 3 seasons, and we finished as well. When I would just like to throw in there, when I was playing at Wakefield, we were finishing 5th. You know, we weren't scrapping for just above relegation like they have been. So I'm going to put that in as a caveat.
Love that.
I think that was more correlation rather than causation, though. Yeah, and then just going back to Batley again. I think Batley doesn't have a lot of money. It does have the world's oldest rugby league stadium. There's a little fact here. But what it does have is it has a lot of charm, and I'm a sucker for it. And I love the people, the club, the ethos of what it's about. And I came out, you know, privately and publicly while I was at Batley, and they couldn't have been any better for me. I don't know how it would have gone down with other people who have a more sensitive disposition, but for me, they were amazing, and I love them from the chairman, from Kev, all the way down to the volunteers who come in and help out on match days. They're amazing.
Well, I mean, it's really exciting that you've gone back there. I love it when there's a sort of like correlation of the start to sort of finish, sort of in a not that you're going to retire there. This could be the start. You could be going into your 40s, Keegan. I don't know, but this is obviously your return. Batley, I think they got to the final of the playoffs, didn't they?
They did last year. Yeah, they were a game away from Super League. It was something that Batley have always done is punched above their weight. So yeah, I'm looking forward to coming into that and just trying to emulate that. I mean, if they were to do that again, it would be punching above their weight. So you're right, mate. Hopefully this will be the beginning of the end. I would have thought I would retire from Batley. Whether that's the end of this season or next season, we'll have to see how the body holds up.
Yeah, because that's another thing. I mean, I'm not sure how long you've been out, but a couple of years, I imagine.
Yeah.
How that and there's been a lockdown in between that.
Yeah.
How is the body at the moment? Because I know you're a personal trainer and you do that in your life, but how is it? Because rugby is not lifting weights in the gym.
No, it's not. And I mean, all my coaching I do is I run it all online. So I actually have a desk job. Everybody thinks I live in a gym. I don't. I sit behind a desk all day. But yeah, it's been, I think I played, my last game was just before we shut down for COVID. So what was that, February 2020? Right. But it's coming up to 3 years since I've, thrown a ball in anger. I don't know if that's right. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, just getting back out over this last couple of weeks, running on muddy fields. I mean, my lower back is not what it used to be. I can tell you that for nothing. So it's, just been reacclimatizing. You forget how hard you get hit because you get I know this sounds, people don't really believe this to say, well, what's it like getting hit all the time? But when you've done it consistently for years, and really you only have about 6 weeks off, accumulatively, maybe 10 weeks off over the year. So for 42 weeks a year, you're getting whacked a few times a week by, 15 stone men. Sounds a lot sexier than it is. You get. I
was going to say that's just a weekend for me, mate. Come on,
you get used to it. But yeah, when you've been out for a bit for a while, it does take a little bit of acclimatizing. And I've had my teeth straightened since then, so I wear my gum shielding just to talk to people now.
I was going to say, Invisalign, if you are listening to this podcast, I would love a discount because my bottom row of my teeth looks like a car's reversed into them. Anyway, so absolute disgrace. As someone commented on one of my videos recently, going, "Oh, those are very British teeth," and I thought, "Fuck you."
I once asked someone if they thought my teeth had improved with the Invisalign, and they said, "Yeah, because they used to look like when Vikings threw runes in a bowl. That's what they look like." So, yeah.
Well, look, I gotta say, for the listeners who can't see Keegan, it's worked brilliantly. You've got teeth, which is good, and let's see how long they last. Imagine if Invisalign did like a sort of a link up with rugby teams where you get your gum shields are actually Invisalign. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
It would help, yeah. I don't know if you have them in that long enough, but yeah, good. Go work for Invisalign, Joe, if this didn't work.
Look, I'm trying to make links to Invisalign and rugby to try and shift this along, Keegan. You're going to have to go with it otherwise. I mean, we've just come out of the World Cup, the Rugby League World Cup.
We have.
Now, this was a delayed World Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's still for the last year, yeah.
Was it a success? That's my question to you. For you, in your opinion, do you think it was a success?
A mixed bag. I think it was right. Okay, there's a couple of levels. Success for me personally because it made me fall in love with rugby league again. I think I'd become a bit disillusioned with it, as I think any professional athlete does as they get towards the end of their career. But there were lots of stuff that went on before I left. Catalan being allowed to sign, Israel Folau felt like a real big smack in the teeth for me. For those who don't know, he was, an outspoken, big, horrible guy. It's so much so that all the Australian league and union clubs said we refuse to sign him, like collectively. But the Super League went, oh yeah, we'll have your cast-offs. We don't care, if he's whatever he's done. And for me, who championed rugby as being inclusive and support, being an inclusive and diverse sport with the players and the fan base, that just felt like a big slap in the teeth. And so that kind of really made me fall out of love with the game a bit. So for me, on a personal level, it made me fall back in love with it. As far as the spectacle goes, I think for anybody who was watching, certainly the semi-finals, they were amazing bits of entertainment. Like, as a neutral, if you didn't understand anything about rugby, you would have thought this is exciting. They were close. They were, it's peak physical athleticism. So that was brilliant. The group stages were a bit of a mismatch. We had New Zealand smacking everybody 70 odd, whatever, and so I think maybe I knew it looked like they'd not thought about filling the stadium. They were playing these games in some decent sized stadiums, and they looked a little bit empty. So I think from a logistics point, they could have done better. But I think on the field, it showed. Rugby league's always been lacking a little bit in the international scene, which I think football is really good at. And so I think it just showed that there is a lot of scope to grow the international game, and that is how you grow the sport as a whole, by getting more and more people involved. It was great to see, Greece had a team, Jamaica had a team.
Yeah, I was going to say Jamaica coming in as well. Yeah, some really not even like rugby union-y style teams coming in, and it was quite exciting to see that, seeing the representation of very sort of smaller nations within the rugby sort of landscape.
Absolutely.
And I think it was, for me, some really, it's always good when you sort of see rugby, particularly for smaller nations like Samoa and those sort of nations, you see them really come to prominence, and it really is a sport that they sort of excel out. To see them get to the final was quite a sort of moment, I suppose. Okay, the result was sort of went in Australia's favour, which is fine, and we're all okay with that. But I think England's performance then, if we look at that, do you think they underachieved this year in the Rugby League World Cup, or do you think it was?
I think no one expected them to start how they did. So they started off and they smacked Samoa in the first game, about 40 points to something, and nobody expected that. So I think going into the World Cup, everyone was, you kind of expect it's going to be New Zealand and Australia in the final. That's what you kind of expect. And you hope that on one of them has a bad day and England have a good day, and you might beat one of them. But it doesn't happen very often. So for England they smacked Samoa, you expect them to beat Greece, but then they smacked Papua New Guinea in the quarters as well, and you think, oh, they're really playing well here. And then for them to, obviously Samoa didn't play well the first game, but for them to then lose to Samoa in the semis, you just, I don't know. I went from being a skeptic of, here we go again, similar as always, to genuinely going into that semi-final thinking we could win the World Cup here.
It felt a bit like an open try. I mean, it's obviously you say open goal in
Yeah.
but I try to bring the rugby element to it.
Yeah, yeah.
It did feel like it was England's to lose that semi-final.
Yeah, definitely. And it was just a poor start, and then but they clawed it back, and you thought maybe, maybe, just maybe. And I remember it went into golden point, which is as tragic as golden goal is in football.
Yeah, I was going to say I hate anything like that. That next goal wins approach.
Yeah, literally next try. It's not even
next so unsporty. It just feels so not sport.
Yeah, because it feels like whoever gets the kickoff, as long as you don't mess it up, you should be in range to do a drop goal, and then it should be bread and butter. So when Samoa got that, and you think, oh, they're just going to score a drop goal and that's it, and then England charged it down, I was like, we're on here. This is it. And then it wasn't. And since Samoa won, but yeah, I mean, I went. Yeah, it was great to watch. I actually went to the Australia and New Zealand semi-final. That was probably one of the best games of rugby league I've ever seen.
I mean, massive hitters in the world of the rugby world, regardless of its union league. That's something you always want to go to. That's a top billing.
It was incredible.
Match, isn't it?
There's the hackers, all that going on, but I think alongside this, I think it's really important to mention we also had the Women's Rugby League World Cup.
I was literally, it's next on my thing. It's the wheelchair rugby
and the wheelchair because we are actually World Cup. We won it. We won the Rugby League Wheelchair World Cup. God, that's a mouthful. But yeah, we won that. That was incredible. I actually couldn't get to the fight. It was on the Friday. I had tickets to the opportunity to go to the final. I couldn't go. But I went to a couple of the England women's games as well, and I went to England beat PNG, and there was a PNG player. She was 105 kilos, and her and there's a girl called Whitbread for England. They absolutely battered each other all game, and that was just as good a sporting spectacle to watch as. I fell in love with women's sport watching the Lionesses, in the Euros.
I mean, it's something that tennis has always done very well, and there are certain sports where women's sport is sort of on a par. I think golf is another one where it's pretty level, but I think football should take note. I think of just how well the Rugby League World Cup did that inclusive sort of element to it, because it brings new audiences to it. I think the 100 does it very well in cricket as well. They have the sort of women's teams and the men's teams playing together. I think there's something to be said for maybe unifying the World Cups and the Euros so that they happen at the same time. Perhaps it would be tricky to have them in the same locations. I don't know how that works, but visually it doesn't really matter as long as you get to see both happening at the same time. And I think that would be so good.
Yeah, I think it was. Very rarely does rugby league have good ideas, so I think they should absolutely hang their hat on this one because it was a really good one, and I think the issue that rugby had that football wouldn't have is just filling all the stadiums. But give them to school kids, get kids in seats, get people. Because I'm Northern. Listeners, I don't know if you've gathered, but I'm Northern. And
that is a shock. That's exclusive here first. If the newspapers are listening, Keegan Hirst is Northern. There we go. Okay, continue, Keegan.
So I've grown up with it, and I've always believed that if you could get it in front of enough people, it's fast. There's a lot of contact. There's strategy to it. There's a really high level of skill. And it just has not had the exposure. I think it's just had fuddy-duddy old men in charge of it for so long. And I think that's changing now. But I genuinely believe if you could get that in front of a big audience, whether that is the men's, the women's, and the wheelchair rugby league, if you've never seen it, it is absolutely
fucking
brutal.
Great.
Yeah, it's
fucking brilliant. It's a great sport in the same way that I think wheelchair sport, generally speaking, is just fucking brilliant. I mean, the wheelchair tennis is just one of my highlights of Wimbledon because it's just getting more and more popular. It's brilliant to see it on sort of a level footing with sort of with the other forms of the sport. Absolutely great, and we should see it more.
Yeah, I agree.
It's been, I mean, it's been a really interesting sort of thing. Technology in rugby, I wouldn't mind talking to you about, actually, because obviously we've got VAR. I say we, like I am football. Nice to meet you, I'm football. But there's VAR in football. It's obviously a sport that I cover quite a lot.
Yeah.
It feels like rugby sort of got it right. Like the sort of your version of VAR. Why are we the football people so shit at it? Keegan,
I have always wondered for years. Like when I started watching rugby league when I think discovered it when I was about 11, and we had video refs then, so that was 20 odd years ago. And they're only on televised games, to be fair, because I don't know do they have VAR at every game, or is it just on televised?
No, it's only in the Premier League games and obviously World Cup, Euros, any sort of in international competition, and actually now in the SPL in Scotland as well. So now the Scots can be depressed.
So for rugby league, it was just at televised games because they can't afford to have cameras at every game. It was two things that I've never understood about football, which always annoyed me. And is injury time. Why do you have that? Why not just stop the clock? And then everybody knows, because they always get, there's Fergie time and there'd be 8 minutes added on, or there'd be 4 minutes and they'd play 8 until someone scored a goal. I was like, well, if you just stop the clock and then start the clock again, you know that when it gets to 90 minutes, you're done. There's no.
It would stop time wasting. It would stop, because that's a big issue in football. And everyone's worried about the sport not being quick enough. There's Arsene Wenger going, yeah, let's make the fucking sport 15 minutes long so the TikTok generation watch it. No, let's stop adding on 50 minutes like we are on this World Cup at the end of fucking matches. Yeah, just stop the clock.
It's just a preposterous idea that I've never understood. And yeah, rugby. The idea of how we do video, the video ref, we just call it the video ref, is if there are certain things that you can't rule on. So you can't rule on a forward pass because of camera angles and stuff. So, but offside, they'll go if the idea is you want to be able to, the referee to do his job. His job is to officiate and to give it as a try or not try it. And it is usually just the tries. Because we'll only do it with offside if it counts towards a goal. I don't know if that's the same in football. Yeah,
offside is general. It doesn't matter if it's a goal. They'll do offside. There was a big sort of moment where they had thicker lines, thinner lines, and every single fucking offside decision was mentioned on Match of the Day for about 15 minutes. That's sort of gone now. And they've sort of evened out on the fact that if it's offside, it's offside.
Yeah, so for us, they would only, if someone scored a try, then they would take it back and see if there was an offside, if they needed to look at that. But ideally, the referee makes the decision. The referee and his touch judges make the decision. If the referee cannot, like without, I don't know what's the term in law, beyond reasonable doubt, give a try. That's when it goes to a video referee. The video referee goes, right, stop everything for 2 minutes, literally while I look at everything. Yeah, did he get the ball down? Can't see from that angle. Show me another angle. Yeah, he did. That's a try. No, he didn't. That's not a try. And then if the video referee, for whatever reason, it doesn't really happen now, but it used to, can't make a decision given the footage, it goes back to whatever the referee's original decision was. So if he thought it was a try, but we can't prove whether it is or it isn't, then it's a try. And it literally sometimes where it's a difficult one and there's a lot going on and people have touched it and there's an offside and then it might take a little bit longer. But you've got the right decision. So like,
it's great. I think that would be brilliant if it happened in football. Unfortunately, another thing I'd love is mic'd up referees, because mic'd up referees, it's so great. I mean, I think they're worried about hearing the odd fucking cunt here and there from like some of the old football players, but you hear that on the mics anyway from the crowd. Just fucking mic the refs up, and then card any football player that swears at the ref, and then you're nipping that issue out, and then you sort of sense what a ref is going through. It makes more sense.
I've never really understood the whole in rugby. You might think the ref is a cunt, but you would never tell him, because if you did, you'd get sent off. It's just as cut and dry as that. And I've never understood why football, when they're going, referee, you're a cheating fucking cunt, why they don't just go, all right, see you later. Because you might have a weekend where loads of people get sent off. After that weekend, no one gets sent off. And there won't be dissent, and you won't get these little yobs in the Stone Island jackets thinking they can walk around calling people, effing and jeffing at people, because I'm going to say Wayne Rooney. I've been doing it for a long time, but
Wait, have you seen Wayne recently?
Yeah,
he looks like he's aged.
Yeah.
The thing I like is that he's aging 10 years at a time instead of a year, like most of us. By next year, he's going to look about 80.
He's the same age as Ronaldo as well.
Yeah. Oh God, it's like old Father Time and sort of Ronaldo. He looks like he's been just bathed in body oil.
That's something they could do. They could nip that. You could tidy football up in a weekend. Give me it. I'll do it.
We're making good progress here. I'm going to be honest. We've sorted out football. That's good. We've got a forward plan for rugby league. This is exciting. I remember I remember when you came out, Keegan, because it was a really important. It was a sort of formative time for me because I'd come out a few years before, but I didn't have any gay friends and didn't really sort of know gay stuff. Yeah. And I've since moved to London, and my God, there is gay stuff everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm getting quite good at it now. But my whole life has been sport. So when you see an athlete come out, there's something incredibly significant, and has always been quite significant to me as a sports fan. So I remember it happening and just thinking, fuck, that's brave, but also awesome. This is exciting. This is a positive thing. I mean, when did you first notice that you might be a bit gay, Keegan? A blunt question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think retrospectively, probably about 13. But I think, I was brought up that you grow up, hopefully, you get married, you have kids, you get a job, and that's it. That's what life is. And you should be great. In the North, you should be grateful for the shit that you're given. That's kind of the shit end of the stick that the Tories whack you with. You're supposed to be grateful for it. So
I call that the straight set menu. It's like it's a set menu.
Yeah,
kids, marriage, house, wedding,
and my mum was fully indoctrinated in that. So when I started thinking, boys, the story that I always remember that I've told before is I remember I had no interest in women, and you remember the Max Powers and Nuts magazines and things like that. I remember must have been on a school trip, or maybe it was even the back of the bus playing rugby and we're away trip, and all the lads, it must have been that actually, and all the lads are going, "Who do you fancy? Like what birds do you fancy?" And
I hated that.
And it was Nell McAndrew, Kelly Brook, all these like beautiful women who had the tits out. And Keegan, what about you? And I remember thinking, so the only woman that I could think of that I thought might be a reasonable answer was Carol Vorderman.
Just so funny because that's the first name that came to my head. It just reminded me.
Carol Vorderman.
Carol Vorderman. Maybe she's like a diva that we don't know. Like I always remember that I used to say one of the things I panicked. You remember Frasier?
Yeah,
Frasier, the show. I think there's a person called Roz on that.
Yeah, Roz. Yeah.
But I got Fraser and Friends mixed up, and I just said Ross from Friends, and then people are just like, "Oh, you're gay," and I was like, "Oh shit, my cover's blown." So then I'd have to sort of go, "No, the Fraser one, the lady one on the American show." It's amazing what people you had to invent sort of like fantasies about. It was very odd, and you just have, because I didn't know what to look for. I don't know, what do you look for? Nice eyes.
Yeah, well, I was like, she's smart.
I can't say that.
Yeah, Carol Vorderman's smart. She'll look after your money for you. Yeah.
Well, Carol Vorderman, if you're listening to this, you'll be fucking delighted. Yeah. You were Keegan's first crush. Yeah. I mean, sure, it was born out of a bed of lies, but look, it's something.
There you go.
So obviously, then sort of your life developed in quite a sort of classic set menu way, the straight set menu way.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been such a huge step to come out.
Yeah,
sort of the situation you're in.
I think I'm going to nutshell this for your listeners, but essentially, my mental health was through the floor. I and I was only playing part-time then. So I had a full-time job. I trained like 4 times a week part-time. Had a young family, just, you know, I was married at 23. I had a kid at 20. It's met, like, I think back now and I think, Jesus. But doing that, I kind of trapped myself into that set menu. And then I was like, I've made my own bed here. I've just got to, and it was just inconceivable for me that I think originally that I was gay, but even if I was, that I could be and live as an out gay, flagrant homosexual of the parish. Like, that never occurred to me. And so I just did everything that I could do that was a manner of escapism. I trained more, I worked more, I drank like a fish, drugs, anything and everything that I could do with some kind of escapism. And obviously that kind of behavior has a very destructive impact on any relationship, especially one that you're not actually, invested in for the right reasons. And I had 2 young kids, and I just thought, I don't want my kids growing up thinking this is what a relationship is, and that I wasn't a good dad. I mean, I provided for my kids, that they didn't go without, but I wasn't there. I wasn't emotionally available. It was like those old school dads that, like Mickey Flanagan says, when they shut the cupboard door and they think they've helped. That was what I was like. And then after a game, I'd go miss it. There were times I went off when we had a weekend off and play on a Friday, and I didn't get back until Monday morning, and I'd just been, an absolute state in shithole pubs and just pottering around. And I was like, this is not what I envisaged for my life or for my kids' life. And then so we separated, and then it was once we'd separated, it was like the shroud had been lifted. I was like, actually, I don't have to pretend to be this person that I'm not. And I started getting brave, and I ventured into a gay bar in Leeds. It's shut now. It's called Mission 2, it was called. There used to be Mission 1, which was for the straights, and then Mission 2 was for the gays. Yeah, they're both shut now. And I remember the guy going, this is a gay bar, don't you? I was like, yeah, that's why I'm trying to get in. Can you move out the fucking way before anybody sees me?
You are probably one of the few people venturing into a gay bars that are probably bigger than the bouncer.
Yeah.
You could have just picked them up and moved them out of the way.
Yeah. But I've always been very aware of, I'm a big man, so try to always be friendly, and because I just think I'm not going to get in if I'm asked it. So I was like, yes, please let me in. I might get seen. And yes, so then I was like, yeah, I think this is a bit of me, actually. And then I thought I've got to tell people. So I went and I told my ex-wife first. The lads, someone must have seen me going in the bar, because eventually one of the lads said, Keegan, these rumours about you being gay are true. And I remember going, oh, do I deny? Or do I? And it was like it was an eternity in my head. And it must have literally been a millisecond where I was like, do I deny? And I just thought, fuck it. And I went, yeah, I'm gay. And the lads were like, all right. One of them cried, actually. I was like, what the fuck are you crying for? And he was like, oh, he's a lad called Alex Rowan. He's a big hard bastard, and he's from Lewisham originally. And he was like, oh, we've got a weird bastardized accent. And he's like, well, you've got to go through it on your fucking own, haven't you? I was like, well, you don't need to cry about it. So yeah, I couldn't. And then the lads knew, the coaches knew, the club knew, and before I knew it, it was on the front page of the paper. So it was,
yeah, fuck. So for most people, coming out hard enough, often it's to family, whatever. So then it for being on the fucking front pages of newspapers. I mean, that must feel jarring. Do you know, it's no longer this moment, is it, with just you and people you know? It's the world.
The thing is, though, that was not difficult for me. I did not find that bit difficult at all, because everybody who I was worried about finding out knew, like ex-wife, kids, mates, teammates, family members. You know, I didn't speak to my mum for 5 years after I came out. I didn't speak to my brother for a long time. Obviously, everything that was going on with my ex-wife was quite turbulent. So the fact that John in Kent knew, because he'd read newspaper, had absolutely no bearing on my life, in the sense of I didn't really care what people thought. Luckily for me, I had an amazing reception through social media, emails. I've got loads of I've still got them in a folder. Loads of like written and letters that were sent to the club, and it was all, there was the odd one. I remember there was one letter that I received. This is no word of a lie. It was written in pencil, but it was definitely it wasn't a child. It was definitely a man. So he must not have got his pen license at school. He wrote that he felt sorry for me, and but it wasn't in a "I feel sorry for you that you've had to go through this." It was, "I feel sorry for you that you're gay and that you've inflicted this on the world," and blah 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 blah. Probably religious, and I remember it was signed off Steve Wigan. So, but other than that, like the support I got, I thought was amazing. But yeah, everybody thinks that about the papers, it being a big thing, but I was more bothered about my immediate, family and friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a big sort of moment. It for me, it just epitomized, because there was obviously Tom had come out, I think, only just a couple of years beforehand, Tom Daly. But there really weren't many people in sport that were publicly out at that time. We've had a good number of people come out, and it's been sort of wonderful actually through the last couple of years, just sort of doing shows about LGBT in sport and actually meeting people who are like athletes or involved with it. It's amazing how big LGBT sports sort of fandom and athletes is as a community now. It's sort of built this sort of thing. And thinking of that now in terms of the greater landscape of sport and rugby league, obviously we've got people in rugby union and you were the first to come out in rugby league. There are a handful of people who are LGBT now in these sort of areas. So there's a positive there that more people are coming out, but then you do have the negative of people like Israel Folau publicly saying that we're all, I don't know, some fucking nuts thing about how we're the devil's come or something. Yeah. And then Billy Vinapola sort of supporting that as part of the England team.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating, isn't it? Because you sort of get that progress, and actually the whole Australian team not a whole Australian team, but quite a lot of the Australian team refused to wear a rainbow jersey this year as well. There's been moments, isn't there, where rugby has been seen as this forward-thinking presence for this, but actually there's the sort of other side to it as well.
Yeah, so I think couple of things on there. So I think in Australia, Ian Roberts came out in the 90s. He played in Australia. He was down at Manly, I think it was Manly. So he came out in the 90s, and that kind of went by the by, really. Obviously, Gareth Thomas came out before I did, rugby union. But I think the thing that I was most proud of, even though it took me I say it took me a long time to come out at 27, I came out in the middle of my playing career, like probably, getting into my best years. And I think, now when I look at my stats, I think half of my 320 odd games, not that I'm counting, when you get near the end, you start counting.
It's such an athlete. That is such an athlete thing to do.
I think
count the stats.
Like half of those, I've played as an out game man, and that's something that I'm actually really proud of. So yeah, I think within the sport of rugby, there are these moments where Ian Roberts, Gareth Thomas, people are, and I'm using rugby as a collective here rather than two separate sports, because the ethos I would think is the same. I mean, rugby union's snooty Southerners, but we'll get over that.
Is that what it's? I've always wondered what the difference is there. We'll go on to that.
I'll give you a full history. I'll give you a full history. But yeah, so you've got this, and there is a brotherhood element to rugby. I think this is going to sound really dickish, but there is something about going onto a field knowing that you might get battered. and you've got your mate at the side here to help you out. And obviously, it's not about physically fighting somebody, but it is a liken to going to war. I know it's not going to war, and I really don't want to, overhype it, but it does help. You do develop a real closeness with the people in the team and the squad, and people forgive people for all sorts of misdemeanors that you'd look at someone on an individual basis and go, "You're mental," or "You're not okay." And people have always said squaddies are like rugby players. There's this weird, not weird, but there's this really tight brotherhood for whatever reason. And so the support is always really overwhelming when someone comes out, when someone struggles with something, even, on a private level in a team, someone's going through a divorce, or all the lads will bandy around and help each other out. It is, and you would think that wouldn't be the case because we're men and we don't talk about our feelings, but I genuinely don't think that's the case at all. And then you get things in like, there is a common denominator here, and it's religion. With Israel Folau, it was all God says this, the devil does that. With the Manly players, so for people who don't know, Manly Rugby League Club in Australia wanted to play around and they're basically they have white stripes, white piping on the sleeves and one around the chest. And they wanted to swap the white piping out for a rainbow. So it wasn't like a big flashing neon ass on the back of the shirt.
That was the first option.
they bartered them down.
Let's tone it down.
They bartered them down to a microscopic rainbow thing. It wasn't like I Love Dicks was, the sponsor had been replaced. And I think originally 9 of the players had said, I'm not doing that. I'm not wearing it. I was like, and then cited religion. Bear in mind, Manly, their stadium is sponsored by I think bookies, like a gambling thing, and they have an alcohol sponsor on their shirt. They've all got tattoos because a lot of them are like Polynesian heritage. So there's lots of hypocrisy there. And that's what I really pisses me off when people cite religion, is that you're picking and you're choosing religion to shield your homophobia. Because there's a guy called Sonny Bill Williams who's a Muslim, and to be fair to him, not that I agree with it, but I applaud the fact that he had principles in his conviction. Was that whenever he signed for a club, he said, I will not wear a shirt that has a sponsor that promotes gambling or alcohol or whatever because of my religion. And he said that, and every club that Sydney Roosters got around it, that people paid so they could sponsor his specific shirt. So if he'd have come out, he doesn't play anymore, but if he'd have come out and said, I'm not wearing that, I would have said, do you know what? I don't agree with it, but at least the man has got principles in it, and his, with his religion, that it extends to all aspects of it, not just bits that he's picking and choosing. Whereas that wasn't the way with these guys.
And it's the same in football as well. You've got the Senegalese players who all refuse to sort of partake in the rainbow laces thing.
Yeah.
There was a few of them, and again they cited religion whilst all wearing bet logos on their t-shirts. And it is as a gay guy, there's nothing more frustrating than hypocrisy. Yeah. And it just, as I was saying on an earlier podcast, it just boils down to what they're least comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of homosexuality is so uncomfortable in their brains that it's the one that they rally against the most, I think. And I think there's loads of reasons why that might exist. It might be down to sort of a toxic masculinity element to it, where they just cannot accept that it exists. There's so many different things. And I think toxic masculinity as a phrase gets bandied around far too much. And I think there should be, not everything masculine is toxic. Masculinity can be a thing that's so, like, as you said, that brotherhood vibe, that got your back thing. It's born out of this idea of strength in numbers, but it's the output of that is very positive.
Yeah.
And that could be seen as something.
Again, I was talking about this earlier. Like, social media is an amazing tool. It connects people, it educates people, it gives people things that they might not have had, a community. But what it has done, it has got rid of nuance. There's black and white, it's yes or no, it's you're right, you're wrong. and if you can't say it in 160 characters, then it's not worth talking about. Masculinity in and of itself, of course, you can have toxic masculinity, you can have toxic anything. The difference between a poison and a cure is the dosage. I know what I look like. I know what I sound like. That's one of the reasons why I struggled so much with coming to terms that I was gay, because I thought I'm not a little, camp, effeminate dancer. Like, I, as much as I would actually like to be that, I am not that. No one can tell me that I am not masculine. I know I am. But I also can high kick and wear glitter and put on some spangly hot pants and, dance around I do a great rendition of Mine Hair from Cabaret and be as camp as a row of tents, as gay as a Waitrose goose. And you can do that and be masculine. One doesn't have to come at the expense of the other. And this thing of, all masculinity is toxic it's like when everybody bandies around the phrase, someone's a narcissist. Because they have, they've got an ego. Like, the world is not full of narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths. They're really rare, and so is toxic masculinity. But sometimes there is a concentration of it, and you can have too much stuff. But just slapping labels on things, just to make your life easier and take all the nuance out of things, like the world is not Twitter, and it really fucks me up.
But thank God the world's not Twitter. Otherwise, only two people would ever like anything I've ever done. Going back to sort of younger Keegan, is there anything you would say to him, or you quite? Because that's a tricky question, I think. Actually, lots of people go, "What would you say to your younger self?" And essentially, I'm saying that because I'm great at interviewing, but. I think that's quite a hard question. Would you? Actually, I'm going to flip that. Would you go back and say anything if you had the opportunity to? Or would you just allow yourself to make your sort of own decisions?
I think I would say it's never as bad as you think it is at the time. Because it's well documented, and I'm going to skirt over this, and I'm not doing it flippantly, but a couple of times in my life I thought about suicide because I felt so trapped. But I didn't need to, but I didn't need to, but I thought that I did. I thought that was the only way out, and I think, given everything that goes on in the world and the stats for suicide, and I was very close to being a statistic. And for what? Like, because I want to kiss blokes? Like, there are worse things going on in the world, and I think that's probably what I'd say to a young me is just don't waste a big part of your life pretending to be somebody else, because life is literally too short. So.
God, I'd love to swoop into the suicidal me part of my life and just go, come on, mate,
yeah,
correct. Because it's so hard during the time, because not to trivialize anything like that. Obviously, it's very common within LGBTQ people to have suicidal thoughts at some stage. But when you sort of go through becoming who you become, and you realize how actually little it factors in you being happy, is who you sleep with. It's all this thing that society, growing up within a straight society, it's just unlearning all of that.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that coming out starts, is that process of unlearning. And you just forget, thinking now, you just forget how much pressure you put on yourself as a closeted person.
Yeah, you think, like you just said, they're growing up in a straight world. You think that being gay is such a huge part of your life, but and I suppose it is, in the sense of it affects decisions that I make, who I choose to spend my time with, my life with, shared interests and things like that. But I think that the way I've always tried to describe it is I am me, and gay is just like it's like a flavoring. It's just like a bit of spice.
What flavor?
Peri salt. It's just like a little bit. It's just like a bit of something.
Bit salty with a bit of fire.
Yeah,
you got a bit of sass of you.
Just zhuzhes it up a little bit. But yeah, I think that was kind of how I explained it when I came out. Like, I've not changed. I'm still if anything, I'm more me than I ever was before I came out. I think that's a really nice way to think about it. That's probably something I'd say to 12-year-old me is, if you want to actually be you, be you. You know, because you're not you until you're not you when you're hungry. You're not you until you come out.
Don't do that. They're not going to help. They're not going to help with the fucking sponsorship of this thing. Don't sponsor things that won't give me money, Jake. There's one more thing that I'd want to end this on, and this is the final thing I'm going to say. We've got something in common, you and I, Keegan. Apart from obviously general physique.
Sure.
Yeah. That's so not true. Listeners, I've not got the physique of Keegan yet, but I'm working on it. Keegan, the thing we have in common is that we were both on first dates. Slightly different version, because my comedy career hadn't taken off by that point. Still, I'm going to be honest, still in takeoff mode. It's not that it hasn't taken off, but it's, you know, it's taking its time. But I went on the original first date.
Still on.
And yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Fuck me, they are. God, I think they're jammed. But you were also on celebrity first dates. I feel like I read that somewhere. Have I made that up?
No, that was true. Yeah.
Because you're a celebrity, Keegs.
Oh God, I don't think so.
How was that? How was your? I like to switch notes whilst we're doing this.
The meal was good.
The
food was nice. My date was a fucking nose.
What's a nose? This is
a nose. It's a northern, just like a bit of a dick, you know. Bit irritating.
Okay.
In fact, really irritating. Everything was a sexual innuendo. And even though this was quite early on, so I'd not been on many gay dates. I was very skeptical going in as well. I didn't have any TV experience, so I didn't know what I was walking into. So for people who don't know, when you go on first dates, they put you you end up in a room, don't you, before, and they're like, we're going to
random hotel somewhere nearby, like a weird
right now you can go in. So you don't know if you're going in first, you don't know if you're going in last. I bet, like Joe's saying, I went on Celebrity, but I was obviously I'm not very well known, because when I went in, and the guy who works behind the bar was like, "Can I get you a drink?" And then he was like, "Are you looking to meet? What kind of lady are you looking to meet tonight?" And I was like, "I'm not. I'm looking to meet."
Oh, I bet that made the edit. They fucking love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was just like, from the off, I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Then he came in, and he obviously knew I was, and he was a bit like, and then everything was just talking about sex. He told me that he tweeted while he was having sex. He told me that he kept trying to force me to eat pineapple, and then he was like, "You know what pineapple does, don't you?" And I was like, "I think you're insinuating about it changing the flavor of my semen." Yes, but I was like, "Fuck off, just fuck off. Don't be beggy." And then,
oh wow!
And then at the end, they said, "Would you go on another day?" I went, "No."
Really? I couldn't imagine you skirting around an issue. I feel like you're quite a straight talker anyway.
Yeah,
if you'll pardon the pun.
And when and when I said no, he actually went and was genuinely shocked. And I was like, "Have you not been in the room?"
I had a sort of fake, well, not fake. It was a good date. It was a genuinely good date. We actually got on really well. It was essentially, the storyline was two gays who like football meet. Okay. That was very much how it sort of was edited. It was like, this guy loves football, and then I wander in and they film me walking outside. I look like I'd never walked before, because they gave you like 6 instructions, like go left but don't go left, and then go right, and then open the door but don't push it, but actually pull it but push the door. Okay, so I had all of that going around in my head, walking like I've never walked before on my tiptoes. Wandered in, saw Fred, and he was like, "Oh, your date's already arrived." I was annoyed because I'm always first, because I'm a very, very punctual guy. Yeah. So I went to him. Fair play, absolute immense looking guy, and we got on like a house on fire. We had a date afterwards as well, and it was all painted quite nicely. But I used the term straight acting on television. And can I just say, the feedback was not positive. Rightly so. I understand the reductive nature of that term now, but I'd only been out for a couple of years and I was still learning the parlance. And to be honest, I said that as part of a broader point about how I'm looking for someone who is straight acting, by which I mean they're not acting that they're straight. They just don't give a shit about their sexuality, straight people. Because straight people don't give a shit about their sexuality because they don't have to. And I always got to that point where I'd been thinking about it so much that I was like, I don't want to care about my personality. But I said that, and they edited it just like, I'm looking for someone straight acting. And it just cut there. And as soon as that happened in the room, I had some mates. I was like, that's not going to go down well. I mean, I did talk about suicidal thoughts and depression at some length on that show, which was shown and aired. The newspapers ran with some more like reductive language in the gay community. Guy says straight acting. And I was just like, in his fucking news reports, friends just going, have you seen you're in the news again? I was like, yeah, I fucking seen it. Quash it, burn it. I was like, yeah, it's amazing what people latch on to is not gay guy who doesn't quite know the right terminology yet, gets it slightly wrong, but talks about mental health in quite a poignant and honest way. Yeah, that's the headline that would have probably been more factual.
That's not what you told. We're not told that, are you? When you come out, you don't know there's a load of rigmarole that you've got to. You need to know what grinder tribe you are. You need to know what kind of gays are you going to hang around with.
Why isn't there a crash course? A gay crash course? Like, come on, mate. Like, obviously, I'd be classic stud jock. It's one of those
circuit stud.
Yeah, exactly. Just one of those hammers. I don't know the terms. I mean, Grindr tells me them. There's a new one every. There's a side. Side is a new thing now. Sides. So you get top, bottom, versatile. There's a side. Yeah. That's just. I think that just means you like oral. Sorry, now I'm talking about sex. This is like your terrible Grindr day all over again, or whatever it was.
Yeah, but the thing is, as well, now I think, I think probably at the time I actually felt uncomfortable talking about gay sex because just because you come out doesn't mean you're fully comfortable in your own sexuality, does it? It just means
God no, Jesus, it takes about 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm like, you know what, wanking people off, whatever tickles your pickle. Whereas then I felt like every time someone talked about sex, it was, I'm supposed to know everything and I don't know anything, so stop talking about it. Because I remember, in the changing room when one of the lads was like, "So do you go on dates then?" I was like, yeah, it's like, what do you think happens? But then it got into the, how does it work? What's the logistics of and then I was like, I remember thinking, I've got to answer this, because if I don't answer it, I look like I'm ashamed of gay sex and if you add it all up, then I'm ashamed of being gay, and I'm not. I'm just uncomfortable because I don't really know. So I remember explicitly talking about bumming in the changing room, and like just on the inside dying, but on the outside being like, yeah, and it's
bravado.
Dead fun, and we just dead love it, and it's so easy. Do you want to try?
You just have to own it, though. I've always found that. Like, I always found the conversations around straight sex really awkward because I wouldn't really know what I was talking about. I'd be riffing on the hoof. I'd be like, yeah, the kind of that reset button that you have to hit around the back of a lady when you finish. That's the level I was at. Like, it was a Tamagotchi or something. So, like, for me, I found like it very stressful talking about straight sex. So as soon as I got to talk about gay sex, I was like, oh, I know the answers. I've revised for this for years in secret online. So as soon as people started asking questions, I was like, no, please ask questions so that I can tell you, so it's not in your head and you're not just thinking it and not worried to say. I'd rather you say it to me and we can talk about how gay sex works. When a daddy and a twink love each other very much. That's just a sentence. This has been a real joy. Thank you so much, Keegan, for spending an hour of your time with me just waffling on about sport and gay stuff. I really wish you all the best at the start of the season. I know you're going to smash it, hit the ground running. And we'll have to have you on again when the season started, if that's cool, just to have a little catch up.
Yeah, definitely, mate. No, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on.
Cheers, mate. Thank you to Keegan Hirst. If you're enjoying these podcasts, please consider donating a bit of change on the Ko-fi link in the bio. But until next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.